On today's episode of Gathering the Kings.
He's like, dude, you haven't even looked at Shark Tank. This is a big deal. All right. Then I find out they get 40,000 applicants per season. And I'm like, I'm not going to get in. But I will say that I lied and cheated to get on the show.
Okay. What's up, everybody? I'm Chaz Wolf, Gathering the Kings podcast. Today I've got Rick Hopper, my man Hopper, here on the King stage. How we doing, Rick?
Dandy as usual.
Dandy. You know, we just went through a Rolodex of nicknames that you were telling me that you had as a kid. With your last name, Hopper, I had a good buddy, or at least an acquaintance that had the last name. I don't even think anybody knew his first name, but, you know, it sounds like your story is a little bit the same. A lot of names that people have called you over the years, but we call you Rick Hopper today. King Rick Hopper today.
I don't know about that. Prince at best.
Prince at best. Well, we appreciate the humility, but I want to know what kind of business that you got, or businesses.
Oh boy. Okay. So I don't know how far back you want to go, but I developed a line of products for a specific industry in 2001, did that for 10 years and sold it. And then I did another product and I got on Shark Tank in 2012. I did that from about 2011 to I sold it about a year and a half ago, 2021. And I just started a company last year called the Wicked Good Adhesives. And now I've got I'm working on a recipe for some chicken food called Hopper's Happy Chicken Feed.
Rick, you're an inventor as well as an entrepreneur, and so many cool angles that we can go here today. But the business that you just sold, tell us just a 30 seconds on that, because like you said, you're on Shark Tank, you got a deal, you exploded that and obviously sold it. Tell us just real quick what that widget was and give us a 30-second snapshot.
It was called a ReadeRest. I had to start wearing it hangs in your glasses, hangs in your shirt like this, and I'll show you a little example. You bend over and your glasses don't fall out of your shirt, like when you hang on your shirt collar. So people absolutely love these things. I sold millions and millions of these things all over the world. Then I launched a line of reading glasses, and then we became viable. So somebody bought the company.
There you go. There you go. I love even just the little tidbits that you dropped there about making strategic moves to become viable. And obviously that's ended up what you did. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of stories there for us to get into. Like, okay, so the inside of Rick, we've already heard just in the quick, minute that we've been on here that you're inventing multiple things, you have multiple companies, you've exited, you've built and exited multiple times. What's the deep core inner part of Rick, and what's the burning desire down in there?
I drive my wife and my friends crazy with this lingering question in my mind that is forever I'm plagued with this idea there's got to be a better way. Everything I look at, everything that's happening around me, I look at it through the eyes. And this is not a conscious decision. This is not a gift. This is a curse. Trust me. When you look at something being done and you go, oh God, there's got to be a better way. And along with that comes and my friends, all my best friends and my wife, I drive them crazy because no matter what the plan is, it's always, or you know what we could do?
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to get anything done with because there's always another way, and a better way potentially, right?
Well, you know what? You get it. What's funny, everything I've ever done, I had a vision for it. I started taking action knowing that my original plan is at best a B-, but I know it's going to turn into an A+ because it always takes a shape of its own, no matter what I think it's going to be. And you have to have an open mind and you have to be very malleable. You have to be able to just roll with the changes, man.
Yeah. I love what you said there, because for a half second, the listeners don't know this, but with our show, we're introducing a new platform. We've been using Zoom for 300 plus episodes, and now we're over to Riverside. And even just our first 15 minutes of interaction here has been a little bit clunky and us trying to figure things out. This is only our third or fourth episode recording on here, but for that first little piece of you saying that there's always a better way, in my mind, I was like, oh no, he just totally judged me. Not really, but the whole process and yes, there's a better way. And I'm like, oh man.
No,
yes.
I was actually more curious. You did 350 episodes?
Yeah.
And you're 4 or 5 episodes into this new platform. Was that we had problems with the other one, or somebody says, hey bro, we got a better way to do it, and they convince you to do it a different way? Which one was
it? We were just looking to upgrade, looking to do better. And so to your point, actually, of iteration, it's not that you look at something and think, well, it's not perfect. It's just okay, well, maybe there's a another level to go to, which I think is actually super in line with just how entrepreneurs and how even myself operate, because we should always be looking to grow ourselves or our family or our business or a process to do something. And so the mind that you've described that you have, I think we all have to a degree. It just maybe burns inside of you a little bit deeper for you to like change the process.
Yes, there's one factor that a lot of people get hung up on, and that's every once in a while we think we have a better way of doing something, and we make a change and we go that direction, and it turns out it was a crap sandwich. And
That's right.
I heard somebody say recently says, just because you order a crap sandwich doesn't mean you have to eat it. And so if you're prideful and you try something new and you're going down that road and you go, well, because it was my idea, I'm going to do this, even though it's worse, you convince yourself and you try to convince everybody around you that it's still a good idea instead of humbling yourself saying, hey man, that was a bad idea. Let's go back to the way we were doing it. Let's go a different direction. It's hard for a lot of people.
It is. It's a really good point. And thank you for bringing that out, Rick, because as entrepreneurs, we do this a lot. Inventors, I'm sure, even more. The old adage of it took Edison, 1,000 times of not creating the light bulb to create the light bulb. But imagine if he had given up, in essence, is what you're saying. And so I love that. I love that. Just ability to keep going, but also to maybe take a couple steps back. Humility is required in that. Anything else to be able to actually move forward with a different idea, even though your quote unquote new idea that you thought was better wasn't?
Yeah. It's tough. There's a lot of things going on in the world right now that we see in the news, and I'm not going to name it, but there are some people that are trying some new stuff, and the suicide rate is absolutely insane for some people who try something new. And what's sad is all the people that are out there talking about this stuff, they leave one very important part out. You can change your mind and go back. People think that they can't humble themselves and say, you know what, this isn't what I thought it would be. I'm going to go back.
Yeah.
People don't know that they can go back.
Yeah, that's so good. There's obviously human psychology that we're really getting into here, and the idea of once I've planted my roots, you almost like dig in your heels, even if someone knows that it's no longer a good idea, or that that whatever they chose is a crap sandwich. But we have this ability to just naturally dig our heels in, and yes, it's ego, it's pride. We don't want to be wrong. How have you as an entrepreneur in that moment been able to not only enlighten yourself with the ability to, yes, I can go back, but then to take the actions rather than digging heels in to actually start heading back?
That's a tough answer. I think the trick is, I think, being completely honest with yourself, having the ability to be completely honest with yourself. And when you realize you made a wrong choice, being able to look yourself in the mirror, right straight dead in the soul, and say, bro, you're going the wrong way. You have to go tell everybody in your company, hey man, this was a bad choice. And it's even more difficult if you allow somebody inside your company to make a decision and you're the authority, and you got to, sometimes it's tricky to go to that group and say, hey guys, I think you're going the wrong direction, because there's always the risk of, are you doing this because you're the boss and you have the authority, or is it really a good idea? Especially if you have somebody in that department that is maybe personally invested into the project, and he's prideful or she's prideful, and they won't admit that it's the worst, bad direction, or they try to convince you that, oh, we're just not there yet. It's tough to everybody involved to humble themselves and go back and say, hey, this is not, we got to make an adjustment.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one thing that you've mentioned, as far as not only just the recognition, but then the action of communicating and just trying to come to a consensus that maybe we do need to go back, it's usually a domino effect. That first person who's humble and who lets the ego go and says, I made a mistake, or hey, maybe, just maybe back where we came from or a different direction is where we need to go. Have you found that in your companies as well? Like when that first person humbles themselves, then the rest of the people kind of like follow suit, as opposed to digging in heels and saying, no, let's fight forward anyway.
Yeah, it's actually, honesty is as contagious as anything else. It really is.
This vein that we're on, it's so interesting that we just jumped right in and we're right on it. But I think that we're on something super valuable here, and you have some language that I want to be able to pull out for the listener. The last little piece I've got here for you on this, like staying humble or going back to where we came from. How do you know in that moment? Because again, you've invented certain, so many different things. You've created companies, built and exited multiple. There's been moments where you've had to choose to either persist or to say, no, I'm going to be humble and go back. How do you know in that moment whether to just push through maybe what's a little bit hard and it's not really a crap sandwich, you just got to persist, versus this is a crap sandwich, it wasn't a good idea, we should go back? Any insights there?
Yeah, I've two things come to mind. One of them was when I developed a product called Trim Quick back in 2001. There was a peel and stick window trim for window installers because I had installed thousands of windows, and I
Wow.
I had a problem I needed to solve, and I turned out I solved it for thousands of window installers fell in love with this product. But
Yeah.
when I first manufactured it, it wasn't perfect. I wasn't the manufacturer. I was the designer, developer, and I was the sales. And ran the whole company, but I had hired an extrusion company to make my tool, my die for me, and manufacture the product. Well, it wasn't perfect, and it was flawed, and it was close to perfect, but the product didn't even work. My customers were mad. They wanted their money back. This is my very beginning of this business. And so I went to
Yeah.
bed that night, and there's been three or maybe four times I've heard a voice outside of me that my God every once in a while audibly speaks to me. And I was in bed. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. I was totally defeated, and I heard this voice, "Get up." It's 2 o'clock in the morning, and it was
Mm.
maybe 5 or 6 times over and over. Get up, get up. And it filled my mind and the room. Get up. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what on
Wow.
earth? This is the weirdest thing. So I got up. Anyway, and then once I was up, I knew it. Then the clarity came to me is I have to go to him and tell him what the problem is. And instead of giving up and saying this just isn't going to work, because I was nothing. I was a little guy, nothing. I had no money. I started this
Yeah.
company with my only $5,000 I had left over from some savings,
Wow.
whatever, back in 2001.
Yeah.
And that worked out. But more importantly, the other story I want to talk about is I had to make an adjustment to my back plate. See this thing here? I think I got some in my pocket. I'll just show the camera a little bit. This is my giveaway version, so it's got white back plates. Just
Mm.
this little white back
Yeah.
plate right here. Okay, so
Uh-huh.
this little guy here marries up to a front clip, and this goes under
Yep.
the shirt, and that clamps onto your shirt and your hanging glasses. Well, I originally made these out of steel, and we glued with two-part epoxy, glued magnets to the steel plate. Well, this
Sure.
violent contact right there was shattering
Mhm.
the adhesive, and it had probably 30% product failure. You're out of
Wow.
business with 2%
Yeah.
product failure. Well, people still were buying the product, and I had these customers love this product so much that they would actually
Buy another one.
glue them back on instead of complaining.
Sure.
People would call me and say, "Hey, what kind of glue can I use to put this back together?" It was
Wow.
amazing. So I had to make an adjustment. So I did it. Now I made a mistake. Instead of re-engineering it into plastic, I tried to reuse about 100,000 magnets that were not the right magnets to put inside the plastic, and they were weak. So I had my injection mold guy drill 3 holes. So I had these little, I'm going to call them little nipples, these little tiny nipples that in 3 places where when you set the magnet in there, you tried to slide it
Yeah.
off, it would lock it in, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Not good.
Because I was trying to save money on tooling, and
Yeah.
I was trying to save money on magnets. It wound up costing me at least 10 times more than it would have been to spend the 20 grand on a brand new tool using more powerful, thicker magnets.
Wow.
I literally wound up throwing 300,000 back plates in the trash.
Yeah.
That was painful. That cost me.
Yeah.
And it was, and I was just fine. All my customers were telling me, "Hey, product, you're this new product, this new variation is terrible." I'm like, "No, you'll get used to it. Really, and I'm like, and one day I go, "Oh my gosh, this is wrong. I have to change
Yeah.
it up."
Yeah. 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 You weren't listening, but eventually you did. I actually, you did a really good job of answering that question. The persistence for you is in alignment with, what you've been called to, or maybe an essence of faith, or an essence of maybe an audible instruction, which I think is incredible. And then there's the times where you got to be humble. And I think that there's a mixture of both for all of us listening today. Maybe we haven't heard an audible voice, but we've had those moments where we know we need to persist, and it's not ego. There's a big difference between persistence and holding on to something or digging our heels in when really we know that it's not the right thing. Like that moment that you said, this isn't right. It's like, it came to you, there was clarity. It was like, oh, it was enlightenment of, I need to do this a different way. And if you had chosen at that moment to stick no, this is the way we're going to do it, dig my heels in, then that may have been the detriment. Would you agree with that? Would you add anything to that?
Yeah, I would also, I agree with it also. I would add that, having been on Shark Tank, you get on Shark Tank and you got 15 minutes of TV time. Everybody thinks you're a genius, no matter what you're capable of. Everybody thinks you're a genius because you got on Shark Tank. Well, turns out I do have an eye for products that may or may not make it into the marketplace. And I've had literally hundreds of people contact me with their projects, their ideas, their patents. Some people have just an idea on a napkin and no intellectual properties or no inventory. Some people have intellectual properties and they haven't manufactured it yet, and so they have no product to sell. Some people have products, tons of products. They have a product that they have tons of inventory. They just can't get it sold. Anyway, I've had every variation of people come to me with, hey, I got this idea or this thing. And the worst thing that I experience is when I have to tell somebody honestly that their product or their idea that they've been working on for 2, 3, 4 years is going to die a natural death, and there's no way that people are going to buy it. I mean, I've had people sit in front of me across from a cup of coffee saying, give me 100 reasons why people are going to buy their product. And I only need to give them 2 reasons why they won't. And that's why they won't.
Yeah.
So some people don't actually solve a problem or meet a demand. They actually just try to create something that they think they can convince people to buy. And if people don't want it because of all the other alternatives, it's just really tough when I watch people persist on something that they should give up and move on to something else. That's really painful to watch. So there is a time to push through and persist and drive. I know this one of my biggest mentors, the Rogers, Betty and Jay Rogers. They had started a company that's worth, I don't know how many hundreds of millions of dollars it's worth now. They sold it for plenty of money before a new company took it up to the next level. But they had a product that they knew was going to be big, and they tried to get sales for 2 years without a single sale. 2 years, but it was a really difficult product to sell. But once the market took it on, it blew up. And they knew it would, and they didn't give up. They knew to persist. And they had other companies, and they had. Do you want to talk about having an eye for victories? They've had many, many victories, and they're the ones that started Biz Owners Ed. I was telling you about Biz Owners Ed. They're the ones that founded this nonprofit that serves the small business community. We'll talk about that later. But the persistence, it's got to be in the right direction.
Yeah. It's tough to know in those moments which it is, but I think we've given a pretty clear understanding, like in your inner part, call it intuition, call it, maybe even the Holy Spirit, if you're faith-filled, or if just a consciousness or a subconscious voice. There's something on the inside of you that's whispering this or that. And it's just a matter of how much we're in tune with that and how much we take action on that. So I think that you actually gave several examples. I want to give you a second here to give us a little bit of your history. Like let's just go super practical. You gave us like 30 seconds, but tell us about these previous companies that you've built and exited. Give us a little bit of your rap sheet here. I want the people to know just what kind of a genius, to your own words, that they're listening to, even though you probably wouldn't take credit for that. I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to serve it up to you.
Oh man, like I said, the having that mind that the ideas come from the ether, and you get a little lightning bolt of idea. Because I don't think that I'm not the author of my skills. I'm not the author of my abilities. I'm not the author of any of my capabilities. Those are granted to me by the Creator. So it's my job is to take the action and do the hard work that comes along with what I really believe is either a good idea or a great project. And when I was a little kid, I didn't know, long before I knew I could make money at anything, I was designing stuff and building stuff. I built a sail for my skateboard because I saw windsurfers out in the ocean windsurfing. I thought, man, I could windsurf on my skateboard. So my dad was a plumber. I grabbed some PVC pipe and some duct tape, and I built a sail. And I
Yeah.
always had a hole in the toe of my shoe. So I tore the hole big enough to fit the pipe in and curled my toe back. And I'm sailing around the neighborhood on my sail. My friends are chasing me. Hey, let me have anyway.
Oh,
So, and
wow.
then when I was 18, there was no word called snowboarding. There was no such thing as snowboarding. There was skiing, and that was it.
Yeah.
And so I was shaping skimboards. And a lot of people don't know what a skimboard is, but when the wave breaks and it comes up the sand and it leaves a little film, you can ride a board and go
Yep.
ride the wave. Well, I was shaping skimboards because I couldn't afford a good skimboard. And my friends were going skiing up in Mammoth in California. And I thought, man, I always wanted to surf in the snow. I'm going to make me a snow surfer. So I built this thing that looks a lot what a snowboard looks like today, out of foam and fiberglass, and put brackets in it. Literally with rope, I tied my hiking boots to this board, and I went up and I
Wow.
hiked up for hours up this powdered mountain, and I surfed. I surfed in the snow. Next thing I know, Burton shows up with his snowboard. I think I was in my mid-30s. I finally decided I was installing some windows, and you had to cut the trim around the interior and then cut it and put nail gun. And then you got to caulk it and paint it to match the windows. So that, man, I wish we had something else. So we did a strip of plastic that matched the window, applied double-sided tape to it, sold it in 12-foot lengths, and people bought the heck out of it. I mean, it's just, we blew that thing up pretty quick. Started the company with $5,000, and within, I think, 3 years, we were selling $5 million a year with these strips of plastic with double-sided tape. And that company's still going today. They're doing great. I think I sold my part of that in 2010. And right about that time, I had to start wearing reading glasses because I turned 40. And anybody in their 40s, most people, that nerve that it makes the adjustment to being able to read the fine print, when you see people doing this, that's because that adjustment nerve doesn't work anymore. And so I had to start wearing reading glasses. Well, now you put them in your shirt collar. I've already told you the story a little bit. And my best friend says, "Hey, bro, I saw this lady with a pin. You should do something with magnets, something to that effect." If he sees his podcast, he'll be going, "That's not what happened. I said." I'm trying to keep the story short. Anyway, so
That's right.
of course, I went out and bought a bunch of magnets, and I made a prototype. Well, actually, the first thing I did is I took a paper clip. I opened up a paper clip, bent it in a U shape, and snipped off both ends, and epoxied it to two magnets, and put a fender washer under my shirt. And I literally wore a paper clip on my shirt for about a year.
Wow.
And it wasn't a business. It was just a place to hang my glasses. And every day, at least 3 people would point at my shirt. "What is that? Where do I get one?" And so I thought, well, maybe that's the next big thing. Next thing you know, I'm going to trade shows, street fairs, farmers markets, golf show, gun show, home show. Anywhere there was thousands of people, I would have my booth set up, and people walked up to my booth like, "What is it?" Because it was a new thing. It didn't register in people's minds what it was. So they walk up to my booth and look at like, "What is this?" And then when I showed them, a lot of times I didn't have to say a word. I would just put my glasses in there and flip around like I did earlier. And they're like, "Oh my gosh." And before they even ask how much they're pulling money out of their pocket and throwing it on the table.
Yeah.
They just
How
wanted
much?
one.
Or how many can I get?
Yeah. Oh my God. Anyway, so we started selling, and then for 6 months, I was selling these things just direct to people across the table and at events. And the number one thing I literally heard it thousands of times, was, "Dude, you got to get on Shark Tank." And I don't watch a lot of TV, so I'd be like, "What's that? What's Shark Tank?" Like, "What? You don't know what?" Because this was about the season 3 was about to start, and I'm like, and I didn't pay attention to all the suggestions. "Dude, you got to get on Shark Tank."
Sure.
So finally, about 6 months into it, my best friend calls me, like up at 11 o'clock at night. He knew I'd be up with my fingers bleeding because I couldn't make these things fast enough. I was making them by hand in my garage. And he's all, "You're an idiot. and he hangs up. Those weren't the exact words he used, but something to that effect.
That's what you heard
There
at
was
least, right?
There's one other word mixed in there. And hangs
Yeah.
up on me. Like, that's old school for hangs up on me.
I think, yeah, I've done that same thing. I'm like, yep, hangs up. Yep, right, got it.
What? Oh, the kids are like, why do you do that when you say that?
Yeah.
And then why do you do
what
this?
does that even mean? You put your phone down? Yeah. They don't even put their phone up anymore. They got an earpiece, or they got it on speakerphone.
Yeah.
Changing fast.
Anyway, so I'm like, what's up, bro? And he's like, dude, you haven't even looked at Shark Tank. This is a big deal. So, all right. Well, then I find out they get like 40,000 applicants per season. And I'm like, I'm not going to get in. But I will say that I lied and cheated to get on the show.
Okay.
So I did his email submission. They have all these things. They go around the country, Shark Tank. They go around the country and they do auditions and all this stuff. I never did any of those because back in applied for season 3, and I hadn't seen the show ever. I just looked up online a couple little 2-minute snippets of what the premise is, and I realized, oh wow, this is kind of a big deal. Everybody knows about it but me. I do an email submission, and there's rules: do not send samples, do not send videos. Here are the things we want. We want your domain, your a description of the product, a picture of the product, a picture of you, and that's it. We don't want to hit. We don't want, because think about having to rifle through 40,000 applications. You wanted as little information as possible, and you don't want videos piling up. So I gave all the information at the bottom. I said, if you want to see a picture of me, click on this link. It was a moving picture, so. I sent a video anyway. And I'm like, what do I got to lose? I don't even know about you. You're going to fire me from your show? I'm not getting on your show anyway. I'm just 1 out of 40,000. So a week later, I get a call from the producer. He says, hey, it's a nice video. I go, you like that? He's like, actually, I did. Anyway, that was fun. And then I got on the show, and the rest is history. If you want to see the show, it's season 3, episode 6. It's a really cool little event. Check it out. I can jump around, swing a golf club, bend over all I want, and they're not going anywhere. Matter of fact, I can take a major tumble, and there they are, safe and sound, as usual, right where I left them, and always within arm's reach.
I'm going to make you an offer.
Yeah, you got a deal, and they can take a look at it there. We'll put actually the link in the show notes for them to check out. But okay, so you've got this incredible history. Thank you for sharing. Love the story, honestly, because there were so many little tidbits in there of, like you said, you're not listening to your friends talking about, the show. Even when you got to the show, it was like, oh man, 40,000. You could have just said no thanks. Like so many, steps along the way, and you didn't. I think that goes back to our initial conversation of persistence versus, knowing when to hang it up. I think that all of the roads were pointing towards this way. And you kind of just persisted through those little things, which I think is great. You had mentioned earlier some good decisions or good decision making. I want to know through your journey, because you've got so many different maybe examples that you could use, but I want you to pick out one thing that you can think about. This is a really clear, good decision that's led you to maybe a lot of what the success you have today. What would be that one thing that we could maybe learn from and apply to our own businesses?
I'm gonna go biblical on you for a minute.
Important to me,
because there was a time in my life when I was a young man.
Myself and my team,
somebody challenged me to read the Proverbs.
Content that goes out every
it's right smack in the middle of the Bible,
and if you
it's perfect for people
any sort of value
who
or insight from
really
this,
are shy away from religion. They shy away from Jesus and hell and heaven and condemnation and all the judgment, finger pointing.
Share again.
All
of the things.
Do this
on social media, on all the different platforms.
The book of Proverbs was written 4,000 years ago by a guy that was quite possibly the most successful guy that ever walked the earth,
business as quick as possible,
and who happened to be the spawn of sin, as far as I'm concerned, because his dad was David. And Bathsheba, I'm pretty sure is Bathsheba's kid. That's a whole nother story. That's a story you can't even tell in Sunday school. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about.
That's right. You're 100%.
Hey,
right.
that hot girl over on that roof, go get her. Anyway, no. So King Solomon was blessed by God in a big way. He had more property and more cattle and more. I mean, this King Solomon was super successful. And towards the end of his life, he wrote a couple of books: the Song of Solomon, Ecclesiastes, Proverbs. So the Proverbs is packed with basic wisdom. And it just so happens there's 31 chapters in the book of Proverbs. So like today is what? The 13th? What's
That's
today?
right. Yep.
Yeah, today's the 13th. So if I haven't read the Proverbs in 3 months, I'm like feeling spiritually hungry because I'm just feeling discontent in some way. And I challenge people all the time, like, hey, listen, if you're just feeling sideways, even the slightest bit sideways, and there's nothing you can eat or nobody you can talk to that's going to make you feel better, it's because you're spiritually hungry and there's nothing else that will fill that hole except for God's word. It just so happens you can read some Proverbs of the day. Literally takes 3 to 5 minutes. I'm a slow reader. It takes me 5 minutes. So go to Proverbs chapter 13. There will be something in there that's going to take root in your heart. That's basic wisdom that really ultimately comes from the Creator. And that has had an unexplainable yet undeniable effect on the way I see life and the world. And it gives me a really unique perspective on business, relationships, and how I treat people and how I make decisions. Yeah. Because it gives you an eternal perspective. And then we're just here for a little while. I've said goodbye to a lot of friends lately. I'm about to this week. I need to sneak up to Seattle because I got a friend that's going to make an exit. He's got some stuff that they can't fix, and he's in mid-50s. And I've said goodbye to a lot of people lately. I had another friend die last week, and just a reminder that we are here for a little while. And while we have breath in our lungs, we make high quality decisions. We build high quality relationships. We're super cautious about who we surround ourselves with. And I mean, not everybody thinks this way, obviously, but everybody should.
Hey, kings and queens, Chaz Wolf. I want to talk to you about something that's super important to me. We put a lot of time and effort, we meaning myself and my team, into this podcast, into the content that goes out every single day. And if you have been getting any sort of value or insight from this, we want it to be able to reach other business owners too. So we would love if you would like, comment, share, leave a review, post, share again, all of the things on social media, on all the different platforms, or even on the podcast mediums of Apple and Spotify. We would love to be able to get our content into more hands, more entrepreneurs, so they can grow their business as quick as possible. Together, we are building a community of like-minded entrepreneurs who are committed to growing their businesses to new heights. So let's do this. Let's help each other. Let's help each other grow. Yeah. Well, I think that you're speaking to the right audience because the people listening to this show want to make good decisions and they want to surround themselves with good people. They want to be able to go to the next level. I loved your biblical reference there. I think it's super applicable. Knowing a little bit of your backstory that is maybe more relatable to the non-believer, how did you come to this place here where Proverbs is your go-to, this was the best decision? Because it actually plays into all of your decisions. So it's the one decision that plays into all of your other decisions. Like you said, you open it up, you read something. Actually, there's quite a bit of very practical wisdom in there that you can apply to almost any decision that you've got. So I totally agree with you, but how did you get to that point? Someone might be listening right now, and maybe their point for them is listening to you say it, but how did you get to the realization that opening that book on a regular basis can fill the cup of making good choices?
Yeah, I'll get to that in 1 second, but I do want to say that, I have a lot of the Proverbs memorized, and one of the Proverbs says, "Of what use is money in the hand of a fool? For he does not even desire to get wisdom."
Yeah.
How powerful is that? You stumble across something like that, you're like, oh my God, I bust my ass day in and day out, 7 days a week, 14 hours a day to make money. And I haven't even bothered to get wisdom. And I don't even know how to keep the money. I don't know how to invest it because I'm just so busy trying to get, of what use is money in the hand of a fool anyway. And then there's another one of my favorites is a proverb in the mouth of a fool is like a drunkard swinging around a thorn bush.
Wow.
I just want to throw a little teasers out for people that are thinking, maybe I should read the Proverbs. Like, no, read the Proverbs. Yeah. Anyway, okay, I will tell you how did I come to the realization that it might have some value in my life? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I had the privilege of having a girlfriend in high school for 3 years whose dad was a Baptist preacher.
Okay.
And I didn't know it at the time, but he when I go hang out with my girlfriend, who I really liked a lot, so I wanted to go hang out with my girlfriend. Every time I'd leave, a lot of times he'd hand me a little business card with a Bible verse on it, and he'd say, "Don't come back till you got it memorized." Well, you know what I did? I want to go hang out with my girlfriend. I couldn't memorize the stupid Bible.
That's right. That's right.
And it had
Whatever it takes.
And it had an undeniable effect on my soul. And it turned a light on that no way else that light comes on. I have a lot of friends that are atheists, and I love hanging out with people that don't believe and challenging them. And I have an uncle he's in his mid-70s, and he's not a believer. And I want everybody I care about to be in heaven when I'm there. So I tell people all the time, I go, hey man, I ask people, do you know how much faith it takes to get to heaven?
Yeah.
And a lot of times they're like, no, they don't know. I go, almost none. I mean, it's very, very little faith. Now, I talk about the mustard seed, how tiny it is, and how tiny that seed is and what it grows into. And I explain that the guy hanging on the cross, the criminal that's hanging on the cross next to Jesus, he didn't believe in God. He just looked over at Jesus and says, hey, and and there's this thing that in people's minds that go, what if it's true? What if Jesus is who he said he was? What if there is a God, a loving, caring creator? What if there is, just in case it's true? And so that thief on the cross, in his mind, he goes, well, just in case it's true, he says to Jesus, remember me in paradise, or remember me when you get to heaven. So this guy says, what if it's true? Jesus, hey, remember me in heaven. And Jesus says, well, that's all it took. That's a tiny bit of faith. So, and I tell all my friends who don't believe, I go, look, I found a ton of relief when I decided to let God be God, allow myself to understand God in a very limited capacity, because there's no way I'm going to ever figure him out. I promise I will never argue with anybody who claims to have God completely figured out, because they're selling something. And so you let God be God, you allow yourself to be a really bad prayer and really not very good at faith, because none of us really is that good. People that pretend to be really good at having tons of faith, very few of them are actually really good at it. So I think that humility of going, hey man, I'm going to let God be God. I'm going to seek him to the best of my ability, even though I suck at seeking God. I'm going to seek him to the best of my ability and let God be God. Oh my God, what a relief. And then that attitude is more attractive to everybody around you. That's why my atheist friends, when they have questions about the Bible, they don't go to the preacher. They come to Rick Hopper, because he's going to be honest with them. I'm not saying that preachers aren't honest. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that sometimes some of us are easier to approach.
For the person listening right now that's wondering if this is a tangent or how this is applicable, it makes a big difference when you understand what faith is, because first off, I agree with you. From a faith perspective, all of the things that Rick has shared, the same effect has been in my life. However, even if that hadn't, I can associate those things directly to what belief or faith in your calling, your purpose, your business, your family. I can associate all of those things. And it's the exact same seed, or the mustard seed, the seed of faith. Because if you do not believe genuinely, or even just a little bit, there's no chance. And so, like you said, it's the what if. It's the true optimist perspective of, well, what if? That's what an optimist thinks. Well, what if this? What if I could create a new product? What if I could do this? What if I could do it better? What if there's a better way? What if I could have an amazing marriage? What if I could make it to heaven, right? Like all these questions of what if, it opens up the realm of possibility based on belief. And that what if is the beginning of belief. And so I love the way that you said that, because that mustard seed.
I want to circle back real quick, and my uncle that's in his 70s, his health is weak. I wanted to call him and challenge him on this. And I told him, I said, what if, when you say, what if it's true? Maybe Jesus is who he said he was, and I can relax and not waste my energy defying and denying the existence of a loving creator. And I just let God be God, and just seek him to the best of my ability, just even though I suck at it and I really don't even know how. And my uncle says, he says, well, even I can do that. You know what I mean? You pop the door open.
It's true. Yep.
Even I can do that. It's like, what an incredible approach to give people an
Yeah.
opportunity to seek God to the best of their ability and to give them permission to suck at seeking God.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's authenticity of what it means to be human. And what it means to be human is that we're broken, that we're not perfect, and that, we are going to be separated unless we accept it. And so for the person listening right now who's still listening, who's curious, I think that this angle of the what if, or the what if I'm wrong, or the what if it's right, it doesn't have to be a fear tactic. You mentioned, the kind of like the preacher that maybe isn't honest. It's not that they're not honest. It's just that the way that the information is presented sometimes comes across as fear. The way that Rick's talking about it though here is just very open. It's like, hey, why not at least think about it for a half second? And I think that there's freedom really in that. And you kind of just described that for yourself. And obviously now for your 70-year-old, uncle, it's not about perfection. It's not about getting to the place, which again, this all correlates to business. It's not about having the perfect product. You talked about iterating several times through different magnets. It's about just going, okay, well, what if we can do it better? Or what about the next level? Or what about the next choice? And when you know that you're a broken individual and that we're going to try to better our business or better our marriage, or in this case, I'm going to get better and better at seeking God. It's okay that I'm not perfect right now.
Yep. There's a lot of relief in freedom in letting God be God. And there's, what if is one concept. Another one is as if. I'm going to use the word as if because I had this guy reach out to me. He's a kind of a big time dude. He's very, very successful. We don't compare to others. We don't compare ourselves to others, but you can compare others to others. And when you identify somebody who's very successful, the guy calls me out of the blue. He doesn't even know me. His name's John. I'm not going to say his last name. He's kind of a big deal in Vegas. He says, hey, I saw you on Shark Tank. I want to take you to dinner. I'm going, oh, this is kind of weird. That's not creepy at all. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to Vegas to show next week. I call him. I say, hey, let's go to dinner. The guy just wanted to pick my brain on something. He saw something. I mean, this has happened. We could spend a whole episode on the people that have contacted me that said, dude, I saw you on TV and I know I can trust you. Weird. That's the number one thing I've heard more than anything. It was the weirdest thing. I know they can trust me, but you could trust Jeffrey Dahmer too, and he'd eat you. So how do you know that you can trust me? Anyway, so this guy calls me. So I go out to dinner with him, and I know what the guy's in the middle of. I know what he's doing, and we're talking for a while. And I stop him. I go, hey, what's the difference between a guy like you that takes massive immediate action all the time, gets almost bats 1,000, has mad success, he's got properties and businesses and partners and just nothing but win after win after win. I said, what's the difference between you and a guy that is out there just floundering? He goes, well, I can't fail. I know no matter what I do, I can't fail. And he says, look, there is no fail. There is no such thing as fail. There is only win and there is learn. Yeah. And you've heard, everybody that's listening to this podcast has heard it 100 ways in 100 different ways. But I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the guy everybody's talking about. This is the guy when everybody says the word, oh, all you have to do is live your life as if you can't fail. Well, this guy's not living his life as if he can't fail. This guy knows he can't fail. So
yeah, he's resolute.
It's pretty. When I first heard the best way to win is to live life as if you can't fail. Well, that's a wannabe version of the guy that knows for a fact he can't fail because there's no fail. There's only win and there's only learn. So as if.
Yeah, I so appreciate that perspective. I heard from one of the guys in my mastermind group, this was in the last week or so, he said, I think I've become dangerous because I just have finally gotten to the point where I don't actually think I can fail. And he used the word dangerous because, and I loved it. I loved every moment of what he was saying because it's exactly what John in Vegas was talking about is when you have complete permission to just go, knowing that it's either going to work for you or you're going to learn from it and it's going to work for you. You just go and you go fast and you don't worry. And it doesn't mean that you don't have bumps along the way. You even in this show, you've described several bumps along your way, but those things have helped you become the Rick Hopper who's talking on the podcast today.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. I wouldn't change a thing. I made a lot of mistakes in my life, and they're all part of the recipe. So how can you have any
That's right.
regret when you become who you are?
That's right. That's right. All right, I got to go to our speed round here. I want to know of, like when okay, a lot of different businesses, a lot of different products, but when you think about like a top KPI or like the one thing that you would track in any business that you've ever had, what would be that one thing if you could only pick one?
Math.
You just took like three or four and shoved it into one. I love it. Explain yourself.
Math.
Know your numbers,
Math.
okay?
Oh, you know what else? Also is relationships. I mean,
Yeah.
If I fall in love with my employees, I fall in love with my vendors, my suppliers, I fall in love with everybody I do business with, because at the end of the day, when I'm laying on my deathbed, gasping my last breaths, I'm not going to remember bank accounts. I'm going to remember people.
Right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, I love both of those answers, math and relationship. Inside of math, what came to your mind when you were thinking that?
My P&L, the calculations from top line to cost of goods to, profit margins and, controlling expenses. And I mean, really, it's something I ignored for a really long time because I was more of an artist in my mind, and I was more interested in the art and the product than I was
Yeah.
in that. When I figured out I'm not making any money, what the heck's going on here? Boy, we got all this revenue, and I wasn't controlling expenses, and I wasn't optimizing, cost of goods. Anybody that's thinking about going into business is like, bro, how much are people going to pay for it? What's the perceived value? How much is it going to cost to make? And how much is the business going to cost to run? Do the math.
Yep.
I mean, I can't believe how many people don't do the math.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You called yourself an artist. There's a lot of craftsmen. There's a lot of specialists. There's a lot of fill in the blank, not a lot of business people. And that's what you're
Yeah.
elevating the listener to right now, is to be a craftsman of the business, which is the P&L.
Yeah. And if you suck at it, find somebody who likes doing that. Dude, one of my keys to success is most of business. I don't like it. I don't like the calculations. I don't like the doing bookkeeping. I don't like having to deal with tax records. But I surround myself with people who love doing the stuff I hate to do. It's a build beautiful relationship.
That's right. That's right. What business resource have you gotten value from? You've already given us the book of Proverbs. I love that. Is there another book, a podcast, an event, anything like that you have gotten value from that you can share with us?
I'm going to plug Biz Owners Ed. It's in North Texas, DFW area. It's an organization that started 10 years ago. Number one, surround yourself with people that know how to win in business and life. And God dropped me into the laps of these people. I mean, I could have moved. I spent 48 years in Southern California surfing and snowboarding. And I moved 10 years ago. I moved to Texas for obvious reasons. We're not going to get into that. And God dropped me into the laps of the most incredible human beings on the face of the earth. And they recently asked me to take over a nonprofit they started about 10 years ago. And their goal is to help serious, committed entrepreneurs grow their companies. And they do it through mentorship and an annual event for 10 weeks called the main session of Biz Owners Ed. But you can look up bizownersed.org and check into that. We've had people fly in for 10 weeks from New York to attend this class. We select 12 people, just like Jesus did. We select 12 people to sit up in front of the class each year. And the gallery in the back will have 100 to 200 people in the back every single Tuesday night for 10 weeks, watching these 12 people interact with a different instructor every night, different mentor, speaker, all walks of life. So Biz Owners Ed is really powerful. But when you say resource books, the obvious list of books that everybody talks about, read them all.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much incredible content. As far as that goes, I think having the right people in your life, surrounding yourself with people that know how to win, and always calling and asking questions to people that have the answers to the questions. If they don't have the answer, I mean, always ask. If you're alone inside your head, you're in a dangerous neighborhood.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you got to be able to have a community. That's how we're designed to do life. I got a question for you, kind of in that same line around community, but more so specifically family. But it can be extended to community, the people around you, the family that's around you. As business owners, we know how to like go all in on our business and like recommit, be obsessed. But a lot of times we're searching for balance. And I think that balance is, kind of a term that doesn't exist. I think obsession exists. I think that we can obsess over our business. We can obsess over our wives or our spouse, our children, our community, a church, anything like that. And so my question to you, Rick, is how have you obsessed over both of these things? Like let's call it family and business, or business and all the other things at the same time.
Well, first I'll give you my definition. I'll give you my definition of balance. When I was a little kid, I was probably 7 or 8 years old. This park down the street had the biggest teeter-totter you've ever seen. It was a piece of lumber that must have been like a 6 by 18, big, giant, heavy piece of lumber, and it was balanced, right? And I would climb up on that thing in the middle, and I would stand right in the middle, and I would get that thing, and it would stop perfectly balanced. That's not balance. The next thing I would do, I would get it going to where I wanted it to not touch the ground. So when the beam would go up, I would run up the beam until it started going down, and then run as fast as I can to the other side. And I would go as far out to the beam as I could possibly run at full speed, both directions. And as long as it wasn't touching the ground, I had balance.
Yeah.
And that's what you do with your family and your business.
Yeah.
And you go, if you want more specific details, I could say, I go, when I'm in the office or out on a job doing sales, I'm focused on the sales. Yeah, I got a family I love dearly, and that's why I'm doing this. But when it's time to go be with the family, you go be with the family.
Yeah. I love the visual there. The running up and down this side here is with the family, or running up and down the side is your sales meeting or whatever. And it's not a matter of choosing one or the other. It's actually a game. Like I saw you as a kid in my mind having just a blast going back and forth and back and forth and like competing with yourself almost, I'm sure you wiped out a couple of times, would you?
Oh yeah. But I would give anything. I got my knee replaced 2 months ago. So there's no more beam running for me.
Yeah. You gave a great description there, how you can do both and have a blast doing it. That's just what I took from you. It's what I've actually taken from you this whole podcast, is that you're full of joy. And at each thing that you're doing, you bring a level of joy, or levity, as we call it. One of our core values with Gathering the Kings is kings are levity, and we remove stressful or pressurized situations and we bring joy. That's what a king does. And so I just appreciate that perspective. I got one more question here for you, Rick, because I gotta, you've said something that maybe would deter me from asking this question, but I think that you'll give us quite a profound answer. And it's this: if you could go back in time to the younger Rick, and you could whisper in his ear, what would you say to him?
Well, there's a lot of Christians listening, so I've got to choose my words wisely. Because my first, you can edit this out if you want, but it would be, don't be a pussy. I mean, go for it. Go for it. You have one life to live. Surf bigger waves, jump out of airplanes. I mean, go jump, do the biggest jumps you possibly can. You're going to ruin your knees anyway, and you're going to need to get new knees. You might as well completely ruin them and get new knees sooner, and then go through those knees. I think doing more and not being afraid, you don't toot your own horn, but I've had a very good effect on people throughout my life. And it matters to me. How people feel matters to me. There's a fine line we walk to where we care about people, we care about how they feel, but we don't dictate our lives around other people's opinions. So caring about how people feel, it doesn't matter. You're going to go drive your life, and you're going to go succeed, and you're going to go make money, and you're going to take market share from somebody. You're going to upset some people out there by going out there and winning and taking market share from an industry, and you're injuring somebody unintentionally. Well, you can care about how they feel, but it's our jobs to go out there and be good stewards of the talents that we've been given. Hey, look at this. Look at the parable of the talents. The master didn't just reward the guy. He took the talents away from one guy and gave it to the guy who was going to do something with it. Well, that guy was bummed out. but
Yeah.
it was a lesson for him as well. So I think what would I whisper into my own ear if I could go back and say, hey, Rick, there's some things you need to know. Number one, the Cubs are not going to win the World Series in 2015. It's actually 2016. You know what I'm talking
Yep.
about. Future. But continue to treat people great, but go big in business, because it's as easy to make $100 million as it is to make $3 million. And knowing that now, I probably would have made a lot more money. But I tell you what'll be on my tombstone, and I think this is what drives Rick Hopper. What'll be on my tombstone is it's going to say, Rick Hopper, he could have made more money, but he couldn't have had more fun.
Yeah, I mean, we picked it up here
Yeah.
from you today. I mentioned just the joy, and obviously that's a piece of what you just said. So I can already tell that I'm picking up the vibes that you're wanting to give, even your tombstone phrase there. You're 100% joyful and excited about life. Your energy is contagious. You've been incredible here today, but I don't want it to end for the audience. You've already described how many people have found you via, Shark Tank and plenty of your companies, but how can they go find you? A listener right now, they're trying to find Rick Hopper. How can they find you? How can they connect with you and get more information about you, your products, the things that you're involved with, your projects, all that fun stuff?
Yeah, I got Hopper's Happy Chicken Feed is not alive yet, but I would love for people to go to Amazon and buy a roll of my adhesive. It's incredible product, wicked good. Don't judge me. My logo looks just like Gorilla Tape, and I don't love it. I don't love that I look so much like Gorilla, but we're going to make some adjustments to the logo. And if anybody's like super inspired, they want to ask a question or something, you can email me. It's rick@rickhopper.com is my email address. Super easy. I sold the ReadeRest company a year and a half ago, but I wear them every day. It's a great product. I swear by it. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on camera, but the guys that bought my company, they suck at customer service. So that's that. We loved our customers, and you guys don't seem to care that much about our customers as much as we did. But I think that's the nature of somebody that buys up 100 companies in 2 years. They're aggregating and stuff, but right, that's what their thing is.
Yeah. So if you have a bad customer service experience, it's not Rick.
I tell you what, right now though, if I get a bunch of solicitors emailing me to sell me services, I'm just deleting them. I just delete all those.
Yeah, we've had so many incredible guests on the show, and so many are willing to give a personal email or a phone number, even, and social media, and we try to protect those things for what it's meant to be, and that's for a handout, a hand up. And so Rick's giving you not only just 40 minutes, an hour of just incredible value, but just being respectful of the reach out as well, and being valuable. Actually, I had just a couple of podcast guests just, last month that were like, look, man, if you're going to bring value, that's what I did when I reached out to people on podcasts. You reach out to bring value, not always get stuff. And so that's the best way to build your network. Rick, you have been a blessing to me and the audience here today. I hope that the blessing is returned back to you and your family and the projects that you are still connected to, or the new ones that are coming. Because my wife is a big chicken farmer, and I bet you she'll be looking for that chicken feed in our local store or Amazon here soon. And so, again, Rick, you've just been incredible. Appreciate you being here.
Right on, bro. Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Gathering the Kings today. I hope that you were able to pull out a few nuggets to go apply into your business right away. More importantly, though, I hope that you're realizing that it takes more to be successful than just being by yourself, doing it all on your own, carrying the weight all by yourself. What I have realized, not only in my own journey from multiple businesses and multiple different industries, and now interviewing over 200 or 300 other very successful 7, 8, and 9-figure business owners, is that it's tough to do it alone. And so Gathering the Kings exists to bring together successful entrepreneurs. In fact, we are putting together 1,000 kings, specifically, who are grateful but not done. We're intentionally assembling kings who fight tooth and nail for their business, family, and communities. And here's what we believe, that in the pursuit of excellence in those areas, that it ignites within us the responsibility to govern power and forge a lasting legacy. So if that relates and resonates with you, and you know that you need people around you, sharp, qualified, other very successful business owners, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com. I want you to take a look at what we're doing and see if it makes sense for you to be part of our pursuit to 1,000 kings. Talk soon.